senseless death, like so many others in our century.
Thou seest me in this day shut up in my prison, and behold my son lying on the dust before thy face. I offered him up, O my God, as a sacrifice in thy path, that thy servants may be quickened, and all that dwell on earth be united.
After almost a decade, though a prisoner still, Baha'u'lláh was free at last to leave the fetid city, and saw green again after so long, and breathed again the vernal air. There was a mansion in the outskirts of the city, surrounded by an ancient grove of trees, and it was called Bahji, which means Garden of Delight. Here he lived the last years of his life, and from here his name was noised abroad. Some came to him for love, and some for envy. Many came for curiosity, and few for truth. But one rare visitor, an eminent scholar from Cambridge University, left us a unique portrait of the prisoner who would change the world.
A second or two elapsed before I became definitely conscious that the room was not untenanted. In the corner where the divan met the wall sat a wondrous and venerable figure. The face of him on whom I gazed I can never forget, though I cannot describe it. No need to ask in whose presence I stood, as I bowed myself before one who is the object of a devotion and love which kings might envy, and emperors sigh for in vain. A mild, dignified voice bade me be seated, and then continued,
Praise be God that thou hast attained. Thou hast come to see a prisoner and an exile. We desire but the good of the world and the happiness of the nations. Yet they deem us worthy of bondage and banishment, that all the nations should become one and all men as brothers, that the bonds of affection and unity be strengthened, and differences of race be annulled. What harm is there in this? Yet so it shall be. These fruitless strifes, these ruinous wars shall pass away, and the most great peace shall come.
On May the 29th, 1892, Baha'u'lláh passed away. And 100 years later, those who call themselves Bahais, after his name, came to Bahji to commemorate his death. Who are the Bahais, and where do they come from? Why do they believe in Baha'u'llah, and what are they doing to share his secret with the world? "100 years after his passing, the faith of Baha'u'llah has spread from Persia across the entire planet. There are Baha'is now in every country of the world. They believe that mankind is one. They say that religions are also one. And they have addressed themselves to questions related to the problem of prejudice, the balance of power, the distribution of wealth, and the need for peace.
For Rick and Sandra Shickley in Washington, D.C., the most challenging of these issues is racism in the United States, a challenge which Rick faces as counselor to the Supreme Court, and Sandra has faced all her life as a black woman in white America.
The challenge for me is how do I do that? How do I raise a child who recognizes that she is a part of the world, that she's a part of the black race, a part of the white race, because that certainly wasn't how I was raised. But that's what I want to do for my child. I don't want her to be ignorant of the racial differences that still exist, that there is racial separation and there are racial tensions, and that she shouldn't be ignorant of that. That's not the issue, but that she should understand that what we're working towards is a society where those differences are joyous and not causes of separation.
For Mona Greaser and Carol Subert, two women who have chosen to work together in their professions, the challenge of raising teenagers begins with racism and goes far beyond. Because it isn't easy to raise children to be open to other cultures and not frame opinions, to be world citizens rather than just black or white Americans.
That's one of the biggest challenges. As our kids become older, the friends that they want, the role models that they're looking for, they came from different races, different backgrounds.
At a time when teenagers retreat into their cultural and ethnic identities, Baha'i parents are attempting to help their children do the opposite.
To reach out.
Washington is a city of extremes, black and white, rich and poor, a city in which family life is easily eroded. These women believe that Baha'u'llah helps them balance the extremes.
Meanwhile, in Albania, poverty has reached extreme conditions that are hard to imagine in the rest of Europe. Ordinary people face a daily struggle against despair after 40 years of economic and political betrayal that have left them on the breadline.
I have 4 children. I have raised them with suffering and great difficulty. In all this misery, and if I were to tell you the details, I'd just make myself more miserable. In all this time, I've tried to have hope. Perhaps for tomorrow, or the next day, or for a few weeks or months. Because this is not a life which lets us raise children. In fact, it would be better not to have children here.
The challenge for Albanian Baha'is is to retain hope despite despair. For them, Baha'u'llah's life is an example of this.
Baha'u'llah was the son of a minister in the court of Persia and had the opportunity to be a wealthy man, but didn't accept it. Instead, he dedicated his life to the service of humanity and to the poor for the unity of the human race. We too are poor, utterly poor, and this faith has given us enormous strength to cope with the difficulties of these times. We're going to rebuild this country and join the rest of Europe, but with dignity, not like beggars. We need to spread the message that the world is one country and that Albanians have our place in the world, and our dignity too.
I have faith in God and hope for the future despite all the problems, because spirituality helps us rise beyond space and time. I accept the Baha'i faith because it's so modern. My dream, like my other friends in the Quartet Baha'i, is to spread the message of the faith through our music.
The Albanian Baha'is say their faith in Baha'u'llah can help them reconstruct their country.